What do you know about titles and ways we address people in English? I'm going to write some common forms of address. I want to be sure you can read them correctly and, of course, that you understand them. Let's start with this one. MR. This is an abbreviation, a short form for Mr. Mr. is a title of respect. We use Mr. before the last name of a man, as in Mr. Jackson. Good morning, Mr. Jackson. MRS. This is an abbreviation for the word mistress, but we almost always read this as Mrs. Mrs. is another title of respect. We use this title before the last name of a married woman. For example, Mrs. Lebedev. Mrs. Jones. Good afternoon, Mrs. Jones. MS. We pronounce this as Ms. Ms. Sounds like a Z at the end. Ms. A woman can choose to use this title before her last name when she doesn't wish to indicate whether she's married or unmarried. Ms. Jones, Ms. Davis. This title is Miss. Miss, with an S at the end. Miss. We use Miss before the last name of an unmarried woman. Listen, Miss, Ms. We can also use Miss alone. We can use it as a polite way to address a young woman whose last name we don't know, a stranger. For example, excuse me, Miss, did you drop that? Mr. and Miss could be used before the first name of a person. When would we do that? Well, for example, my children used Mr. and Miss as titles before the first names of their teachers when they were little in daycare. So they would go to school and talk to Miss Julie, Miss Lisa, Mr. Jack. Now, Miss, I said, could be used alone as a polite way to address a stranger. But what if the person is a man? Then we use sir. Yes, sir. Excuse me, sir, is that yours? Miss would be for a younger woman. For an older woman, we use ma'am. That's short for madam. You say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. May I help you, ma'am? Let me show you just a few more because I think you'll come across them. DR. Have you seen this? This is an abbreviation for doctor. We can use doctor as a title for a person who practices medicine. So a medical doctor, a dentist, a veterinarian who cares for animals. Doctor can also be used as a title before the last name of a person who holds the highest degree from a college or a university. If a person teaches at a college or a university, you'll see this. PROF, prof, is short for professor. Doctor and professor could be used before the person's last name or alone as a polite way to address that person. Excuse me, doctor, or excuse me, professor, I have a question.